Let's bring in Senior Research Fellow at Africa-Asia Dialogues, Thembisa Fakude. Thembisa, good afternoon and thank you for your time with us here on the SABC at this hour.
Thanks for having me.
Given the intensified and increased calls for ceasefire following the UN Security Council resolution for all parties to comply with international humanitarian law, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu now having been reported to the ICC for war crimes and war crimes against humanity, how would you weigh in on these developments as we speak, given the conflict in the Middle East at large?
Well, I don't think anything will change. I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu has been on a rampage and he does as it pleases. And the world has been watching. In fact, what we've seen instead, we've seen European countries and the United States supporting him. So this is not going to change anything. Of course, there has to be pressure moving moving forward. And one hopes, of course, that Joe Biden doesn't win. But even if Joe Biden doesn't win, the West person and the United States politics are going to be coming into power. So it's all doom and gloom for the Palestinians. We can scream, shout, and do whatever it is that we deem fit and necessary at the International Court of Justice or United Nations Security Council and General Assembly, but I doubt if that will change the ways of Benjamin Netanyahu.
Let's get into America and its stance. There was a poll that was conducted. Some Americans coming out to say that Israel in fact is going too far in their response to Hamas. What impact do those sentiments have as America edges closer and they head to the polls as well?
Well, I don't think it's going to make any changes because the two contenders to this political power in the United States is both Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Joe Biden has already expressed his position in this regard, and we know what Trump is going to do. He's the one who came up with the Abrahamic Accords and bringing in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and other countries to normalize relations with Israel. So there isn't going to be any change. One, you have got this hawk in the form of Joe Biden, who has insisted that Benjamin Netanyahu must continue and do as he pleases. But the other alternative is worse. Donald Trump, if he does win, is going to be worse. So there is no light at the end of a tunnel at the moment.
What about South Africa's bold stance against Israel, reporting Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu? What impact do you think this is going to have the world over as well?
I think South Africa's stance has to be commended. It's one of the bravest in the world at the moment regarding Israel. And I think it is resonating, particularly within the streets of the Arab world. South Africa is regarded as one of those countries that insist on maintaining and promoting justice. So it's been a good stance. And I think it also secures a seat on the table of negotiations once the dust settles. Because South Africa will henceforth be part and parcel of negotiations because of its position on Palestine.
We're looking at the role of BDS movements, boycott sanctions and boycott, divestment and sanctions. At this point, we've seen in South Africa, brands like Woolworths South Africa coming out to boycott some of the products from Israel. Do you think this is also going to be impacting or adding further pressure on Israel, perhaps to end?
Well, I think so. I think it's going to have an impact, but at the same time, it could backlash because these institutions employ, by and large, black people in this country. So you are likely, therefore, if there are going to be retrenchments, that could have an impact on the Palestinian solidarity in South Africa because people would start questioning whether it's worth for them to continue supporting Israel at the expense of the economic downturn in this country. So we'll have to wait and see how that's going to happen. But of course, it's resonating within the pro-Palestinian communities and civil society, and hopefully it's going to put pressure on those companies to stop supporting Israel.
Earlier on, you spoke about South Africa's relationship with the Arab world, and I just wanted to bring to the fore Iran having announced the supersonic missile, the timing of that and the impact and response given the timing and also what the implications are at large from your vantage point.
Well, Iran has come out day one in support of the Palestinians. They've always supported the Palestinians, particularly Hamas and Islamic Jihad, so there's nothing new there. But again, I agree with you. The announcement is a bit, interesting, for lack of a better term, because it therefore means that Iran is ready to join the war, or Iran is basically announcing to the world that it's got the capabilities of hitting back at Israel. And I think Israel is very concerned at the moment. Not only are they concern about these weapons reaching Hamas or Hezbollah or Islamic Jihad. We know for sure now, for example, that notwithstanding the closure of Gaza Strip from 2007 till today, but somehow they managed to get the most sophisticated weaponry into the Strip. And they are fighting the so-called most sophisticated country on earth when it comes to military capabilities. So if this does get to the hands of platforms such as Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad, I think we might be talking about something else that's going to be more serious for Israel.
Well, Thembisa, just also looking at the humanitarian front and the aid and assistance at this point, there have obviously been calls for humanitarian pauses, but there have been safety concerns given the attacks on some of volunteers, doctors and other specialized personnel at this point. What concerns arise on that front given the severity and the nature of the war and really how, no one really knows when it's actually going to come to an end at this point as time runs out?
Well, with thousands of medical personnel, doctors and others who are willing and ready to enter Gaza to go and assist. But of course, it's countries such as Egypt and Israel that have stopped those people from coming in. I know that Egypt tries very hard all the time to whitewash itself, but it's complicit in this regard because they control Rafah crossing and they can, if they want to, open that corridor to both Palestinians who want to leave and the assistance that's needed to go into Gaza, but they're not doing that. So at the moment, Al-Shifa Hospital, which is the largest hospital in Gaza, is under the control of the Israelis. And again, we are seeing this on television real time, and no one is doing anything about it. So again, there's no hope on site as far as I'm concerned, including regarding the inflow of medical supplies and assistance into Gaza.
I want to actually also explore the U.S. pointer once again, just given, what's transpiring in the United States of America and their role in supporting Israel. How has U.S. foreign policy played a role in the Israel-Hamas war at this point? And given the worries about stability in the region at large, what also came to the fore when, the UN Security Council resolution was binding all parties, I guess, by international law. The US didn't use their right to veto. They allowed the resolution to pass. What sentiments come to the fore on that front, given the dynamics unfolding?
Well, I think that the play is all optics. Okay. They're trying to play for the gallery in this regard because they know the pressures that are coming with this, especially particularly at the United Nations Security Council. But it means nothing if the 5 permanent members do not endorse any resolution sponsored by either party who happens to be the permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. So you've got other members of the United Nations Security Council who are against ceasefire. We've seen what happened, the fiasco at the British Parliament, where a sizable number of MPs voted against ceasefire, most within the Labour Party, notwithstanding that they were given the instructions, they decided to abstain and others resigned. So these are people who are not really looking at any ceasefire in Gaza. They will be, and they remain very happy to see Gazans bombarded by the barbaric regime of Israel. And as long as that's the case, I don't think the American foreign policy is going to be influenced in any way or form. Instead, they're going to continue doing as they please. And again, by the way, I think Joe Biden understands that if it does change course at this point, it's almost a done deal that Trump is going to be the next president of the United States.
Thembisa, let me wrap up this conversation just very quickly, bringing the conversation back home to South Africa. Last week, we saw the debate by motion put forth by the EFF. There were many calls, amongst others, the shutting down of the embassy, as well as suspending relations between South Africa and Israel, given the dynamics unfolding. Walk us through what's also coming through on that front, given South Africa's stance, given the steps they've taken in reporting Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to the ICC, in relation to what's transpiring as time continues to run out.
Well, South Africa's got nothing else to do. I mean, we are far away from action, tip of Africa, and the best we can do at this moment is to kick out the Israeli ambassador to South Africa and continue with the boycott, divestment, and sanctions against the state of Israel. But other than that, there's absolutely nothing that South Africans can do. But the most important thing, again, to note is that South Africa has got this multicultural, multi-religious solidarity movement that includes Muslims, Christians, and Jews who are leading this. So it puts us in a much more better position. And I think we must all hope that we continue in that way. Notwithstanding, of course, that we've got institutions such as South African Jewish Board of Deputies and South African Zionist Federation that claim to speak on behalf of the Jews, and as a result indirectly creating tensions, particularly between the Muslims and Jews. And I think as long as we're going to have these Jewish people amplifying those voices saying, not in our name, we are likely to continue having this unified solidarity movement in South Africa against what's happening in Israel.